So, welcome. We are delighted to have Jun Han. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yep, you got
Or,
it.
or, or close enough, right?
That's perfect.
Um, but we are delighted to have Jun Han. We want to put on workshops that are going to help you sometimes get better at your craft, but also get better with the business side of things too. And I've seen a lot more people, especially on LinkedIn, start to introduce illustration and drawing to help them put their ideas out there. And so we thought, we need somebody who really understands that and can help those of us who are maybe a little bit rustier with our drawing skills. So, yeah, we're super excited to have you all here tonight, and super excited for our instructor too. So, thanks for being here.
We would love to, we'll have a Q&A at the end of the workshop. So as you have questions, feel free to drop them anytime in the Q&A, or if you feel more comfortable in chat, feel free to drop them in the chat. Absolutely participate as you hear something you love. Make a note. Austin last couple of weeks had some weird like video thing turned on. So whenever he gestured largely, we got like balloons and things. So if you're able to do that in the chat, it's pretty amazing.
I
I
can't turn it
appreciate that
off.
you didn't turn it
If
off.
if anyone knows how to turn it off, I have cash. I have cash.
I think you need to keep
So
it forever, forever. But without further ado, I am so incredibly pleased to introduce you to our presenter today, Jun Han. I started following your art and your Instagram, and then I immediately started getting your newsletter, and I read everything that you do religiously. If you follow Moxie on Instagram, you have absolutely seen one of Jun Han's posts, because I feel like I share all of them. I just love the way that you can visualize things and make them understandable for like, I feel so often that when I look at your post or I read your writing that, oh, that is exactly what I was trying to say. And I didn't know how to put it. So I'm so excited for this workshop, and I will hand things over to you.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Austin. Thanks for having me. And I know it's like, I think dinner time for you guys. So please feel free to have dinner if you are hungry. And for everyone else in the world, hello, it's morning time for me. It's about 9 a.m. I don't know what time zones you are in, but hi, thanks for making time. My name is Jun Han, and let me now share my screen and figure out how this works. I believe it's working right now.
Perfect.
Okay, so this will be like around 30 minutes of me sharing how you can draw simple pictures to strengthen your pictures. And it's really for anyone like me in the past with no drawing skills at all. And I would say like right now, I'm not an artist. My focus is really on delivering the message in a simple way. And this has worked for myself, for my audience, and as well as for clients who come from various different industries and backgrounds. So this works, and it could apply for you too. Before I begin, a little bit more about me. Michelle has introduced me, but let me give you a quick overview of why I know this works, at least for me. So this is me. This is a snapshot of my profile yesterday. And you can see here that I draw really simple stuff, a little bit graphical, but it's actually quite simple. This is the product of experimentation for the last 2 years. This began as a hobby and then became a side hustle, and now became a full-time business for me. And I have the privilege to share my ideas with the world, and I have had a great time working with interesting clients from around the world as well. And at the moment, I help mission-driven businesses communicate their expertise so that they can elevate their business. And I want to tell you why I know that visuals are so effective. This here is my favorite illustration, and it's my favorite only because of what my friend Henry told me. So Henry was the head of customer loyalty at GoTo, the largest tech startup in Indonesia at the time. for a long time, I wanted to step out of my corporate job and build my own business, but then I didn't know how I could make a good living out of art. There's always the idea that if you make a living as an artist, then you'll likely end up being a starving artist. And I told this to my friend, Henry, and what he told me is something that I'll never forget, right? He said that what he told me a story of what happened during the pandemic. I think it was in 2021. So he said, what do you say to a team after a merger and layoff in a pandemic when everybody is working from home all alone, right? So he had two options. As a leader, he has to take care of his people, but he had two options. One is to go with the typical town hall approach, where you have a presentation with your plans, your projections, and the promises of a better future, which may or may not happen. Or he could focus on the emotions and the situations that his team and his friends are in. So he opted to do that by just showing two visuals, and this one on screen is one of the visuals that he showed. And interestingly, he said that when he presented this, he could see the gallery of all his colleagues on Zoom, like the discussion that we're having right now, and he could visibly see people sitting back, rolling their shoulders and relaxing, even before he started talking. So by the end of his town hall, he didn't even show the plans and projections. He sent those as part of the email. But that, hey, the most useful thing about visuals is that you can actually take care of people's emotions instantly, right? Like you can have a long thing to say, but if you have a visual that accompany your notes or your speech or your report, then you really get to your audience much faster and much quicker. So, and he told me that if he could use this to manage his team, manage change and counsel his team, then there are a lot more business applications out there. And true enough, people have come to me and said, hey, can you draw for my social media ads? Can you draw for my investor pitch decks? Can you draw for me to elevate my thought leadership on social media? So this works, right? When you illustrate your ideas, you can reach your audience emotionally. And if you can convince them of your value, you earn that business. So in short, if you can illustrate your ideas, you can show people how you can help them, then you can elevate your business. And to give you some more idea of what kind of pictures I've been doing, this is one of them. It's really simple. I really like to draw simple stuff. Like this one, it's about reminding myself and the people around me that 99% of your stress is optional, right? You don't have to stress so much. Sometimes it's a little bit more fancy, like this one, a little bit more graphical. And only because the metaphor helps to deliver the message, right? But no matter what kind of illustrations I do, whether it's just simple shapes and lines or something graphical like that, the whole idea is to deliver a message in a simplest and fastest way possible. And it don't always have to be graphical or even in shapes. It could simply be words, right? How do you present words in a visual way to deliver that visual experience? I think as I was preparing my slides for today's session, I created a short carousel post on Instagram to show the other word-based visuals that I have. Really, you don't need to draw anything. You just need to show the words in a different way. Something like removing parts of the word or changing the words or reordering the words that you use can really be a great reminder for people. So I didn't include it here, but you can check out that short guide on Instagram. So before we dive into like the technical part of the content, right, or the guides on how to draw, how to use graphs, I just like to take a minute and ask you a question first. Have a look at these visuals. What are they saying to you, right? And feel free to share what you're getting from these pictures in the chat, and then we can have a debrief about them. Basically, it could be one of them or two or three of them, but generally what you're getting from them, what are your first impressions? And then we can have a look. Cool, thanks, Marie. Sometimes you can't always control the outcome. That's a cool response. It's about perspectives. It's about being straight to the point, clear and concise. I think you nailed that, Lorian, if I got your name right. The whole goal is to simplify a complex idea so that it can be delivered in like 5 seconds, right? As compared to delivering a 2-minute, 5-minute speech, or a 2-minute or 5 minutes long article. If you have something that can be understood in 5 seconds, you would have engaged more of your audience. Short steps from unemployed to employer. Yeah, that's my goal right now. I moved from being employed, I skipped the unemployment part, to being a self-employed person, and eventually I hope to be an employer too. Austin, the mental relief that comes with simplicity. Yes. As an illustrator, I do the mental work so that you can get the message in a simple way. Yeah. So I think you can really see that just from these 3 pictures, you don't need to be an artist. You don't need to draw detailed stuff or complex things. But the whole concept is really how you can think visually and express things in a quick way. So moving on, what you're about to learn today is a few more reasons why you should use illustrations or visuals. The 3 most useful types of graphs for explaining ideas. And I focus on graphs today because I've got friends who tell me that I can't even draw a proper stickman, right? Michelle is laughing over there because of the stickman you drew. But really, if you can draw a stickman like that, you can draw anything in the world, right? And how do you draw graphs in a way that's interesting and simple and stimulating and feels very human when you put it in your social media or your decks or your reports, right? So why draw? Let's dive into that. 3 reasons: speed, our biological biasness towards visual information, and of course the effectiveness. So speed. If you read Medium, they have the average speed, 260 words per minute. But according to MIT, when you look at things, you don't take that long to figure out, oh, the thing that I'm looking at is a chair, or this is my dinner, right? For example. So you can process images really fast. And the whole idea is this: if you can present the overview of the idea upfront, you earn the attention to speak more. You would earn the attention for people to read on the click more button and actually read your post, right? So visuals will always be something that is a multiplier for the message that you want to send. Next one is biological bias. And I got this from Dan Rome's Back of the Napkin book. Highly recommended for anyone who can't draw. He says that 75% of our sensory neurons are visual. So that means that in a meeting, when everybody have 5 senses, you generally don't touch people in a meeting. You don't smell and you don't taste unless you are presenting about food. If you're only using words, you're targeting a very small portion of your audience's brains, right? But if you have a picture to go along with it, then you're targeting 75% of your audience's senses, and you get that information across better and faster, and your audience can remember it so much easier. And the side benefit of this is that if you're talking to a potential client or even your existing clients, after you have the discussion, you can send them a follow-up message in a day or in a week and send the visuals along and say, hey, remember we talked about this? Do you want to continue working together on this thing? That will help trigger the recall much better than a simple line, hey, just to follow up, do you want to work together? Sending that visual really triggers the recall better. And finally, effectiveness. I learned this concept as an undergraduate doing psychology, the idea of schemas. So schemas are a pattern of thought or behavior that organizes information in your brains. Essentially, it's about meeting your audience halfway, right? If I show you an image of an ice cream, you know what an ice cream is because you've had ice cream so many times in your life, right? And if I give you a short label over here, life is like ice cream, you can start to think about what this message is going to be about. Of course, an ice cream can deliver a whole range of lessons and ideas, but as I add a little bit more to this message, it becomes really clear. Life is like ice cream. How long will you wait before you enjoy it? And I'm sure, like, if you're anything like me, sometimes you have a bowl of ice cream and then you're watching Netflix, and then after a while you remember your ice cream, but it's just a puddle of soup. So, you know, it's really easy to use a metaphor and get the idea across. Yeah, metaphorical thinking. But you know, this is really simple, but what if you can't draw, right? The whole idea is really not to make beautiful art, but to send a message across. You want to articulate ideas. The idea is more important than the aesthetics. So here's an example of me having my terrible drawing, potentially worse than Michelle's stick figure. The one on the left is what I drew on my phone as a draft. And the one on the right is the final outcome that I created on Figma. If you do not know about Figma, it's a free tool that you can use to create visuals like that. And really Figma, the next objection that people say is that, oh, I don't want to learn another software, or I'm not tech savvy, I don't know how to use illustration software. That's fine, right? But let me just say that I only use 1% of Figma to do all the illustrations that I have. So you really don't need to be an expert. I'm not covering Figma in this session. I do have a recorded online course where I teach you the rest of the concepts of how to illustrate your ideas, how to explain ideas in a simple manner, and a tutorial on how you can use Figma. So I've got students and friends and colleagues saying that, oh, I watched it on a Saturday morning, and by Saturday afternoon, I'm already making my first illustration. So it's really simple to pick up if you're interested. The next point is really to think visually, because even if you are talking without visual support, maybe you're on a phone call, you don't have a screen to share, you're not there in person. If you can think visually, if you can come up with the metaphor, you can say that and put that image in people's minds, right? I can imagine a teacher or a counselor or a parent using this illustration and saying to their student or children that, you know, it's necessary to go through some challenges. It's like a baker. If he wants to make good bread or cake, you've got to strain the flour. So you are like the starting state of the flour. Right out of the box, you have lumps, but you got to go through the strainer, you got to go through the sieve and filter to get the best results. So embrace the challenges, something like that. And if you can show this illustration immediately, that helps. Or after that, you can send this as a follow-up and they'll remember your conversation. As I mentioned, you can use the software to help you. This was done for a client. I drew a very simple draft, showed it to him, he liked the idea, and then the one on the right is really the outcome. Very simple, nothing fancy, but you can beautify your rough sketches and send it to your clients. And it can be as simple as drawing graphs. You don't have to make fancy drawings. The picture on the left is something I drew on my phone as I was speaking to my friend, and I drew it in under 30 seconds. And after that, I went back, I beautified it, and then now I've been using this as part of my marketing and sales materials as I talk to new clients as well. So if you can create illustrations, or even if you have something hand-drawn, you take a photo of it, you keep it, you can send it to different people over time. It's really useful. So moving on, it's about explaining ideas with graphs. And the three types of graphs that I love to use are bar graphs, line graphs, and Venn diagrams. And we know what these, what I call mathematical diagrams are used for, right? They are typically used to show data, to show numbers and information. But I use graphs and diagrams to send ideas across. So it's actually a little bit different. Let me show you how. So first one would be bar graphs, and bar graphs are useful to show differences, to compare between different people, objects, or things, right? And for this specific illustration that you've seen before, I think marketers or communication experts can use this, right? You might want to change the labels a little bit to fit your context, but this is really useful to send a point across. Why should people work with you, right? Because you can deliver something faster than what they might do before your help. Two other examples, you can share, you can compare multiple things on a graph, like the one on the left. How much you learn from theory, from, you know, like reading a book, watching a video like this one, as compared to how much you actually learn when you put it into practice. So I really hope after this session, you take out your pen and paper and then start drawing something. It could be an ugly first sketch, that's fine. And ugly first sketches are part of the process. I have my ugly sketches as well, and my public speaking idol, Craig Valentine. He's a world champion of public speaking in 1999. He said that, your message is really just a mess with age. So start drawing, start writing down your messages, and then refine it over time, and it becomes a beautiful message. Or you could compare two graphs together, right? The picture on the right, you can see over there, it's taken from my friend. I think she was talking about whether you should change your job, right? If you're in a job for 5 years, then you probably should be gaining more and more different experiences. But if you're doing the same things over and over again for the past 5 years and not learning anything new, then you should probably consider changing jobs. And take note of that speech bubble on the right? That's one of the ways I humanize or make a picture more interesting by adding human elements to it. And next type of graphs, line graphs. It's to show change over time. And this, I can see marketers, teachers, and coaches use this with their clients or students to tell them that, hey, you actually need to put in consistent effort over a period of time before you see results. Results are usually not instant, right? So this can help you get your clients to commit to a longer period of time. And two other types of line graphs. Really, you don't need anything more than a few lines and a few words to convey a meaning, a message. And if you want to make it a little bit more fancy, like the one on the right, I put in a few labels: getting out of bed, putting down your phone, getting in a zone. And that's really all you need to do, right? But I just want to make it a little bit more interesting and eye-catching. And that's why I put in the picture of that superhero, a flying guy with a cape. Something simple, but catches the eye. Next, Venn diagrams. Venn diagrams are useful to show the things that are in common, things that are subsets of each other, or things that are entirely separate, right? This is, I think I showed this earlier. It's about stress. Counselors, coaches, psychologists can use this. I've personally printed this out and sent it to a number of my friends before, just because they seem to be so stressed about their work, about their children having exams. I don't know why parents are so stressed, but it's their children's job to be stressed, not them. Yeah. So what I like about this particular format of a Venn diagram is the contrast between the huge circle and the tiny one, to show that, hey, you don't really need to worry so much. And it doesn't always have to be circles. Venn diagrams can be shown in different shapes. Like the one on the left, it's about having conversations and finding common ground despite having differences, or showing like a map version on the right. You can exceed your boundaries, right? And this targets our imposter syndrome. We usually think that we can do so little, but actually we can do a lot more. And our dreams are definitely much more than what we hope we can do. And of course, as you practice and move on, you will exceed your original dreams and find out that you can do much more than you ever dreamed of. So, which is why, when you look back 10 years ago, you typically say, the version of me 10 years ago would never have been able to do what I do today, right? So this kind of explains that. So these are a few examples of graphs. I would love to show you more, but in the interest of time, I would suggest that you go to Instagram or any other illustrators pages, and you see how all of us have somewhat different styles of drawing graphs. You've seen a sample of the way I draw my graphs. Go and look at other creators, and they have really, really interesting stuff. In fact, I actually started putting in characters like this guy on the right because I was studying other people. So it's very easy for you to go online, look at how different creators do things differently, absorb the things that are useful for you, and create your own style. And next, I want to talk about how do you make your graphs more human. And I'm borrowing this concept from languages called personification. And basically, it's about adding human characteristics to non-human things. And the easiest things and the most common things I add are thoughts, feelings, dialogue or conversations, and objects. So this is yet another Venn diagram contrasting the big and the small. But I am making the two circles out into two different people, right? The first guy is being so dramatic about, oh, I need to do 101 things today. But the second, more relaxed and chilled out guy would say that, oh, don't be so dramatic. You only need to do like 5 out of the 100 things today. Yeah. So this makes it a little bit more fun and interesting. And you know, when you have speech bubbles or thought bubbles or conversations like that in a picture, it helps your audience relate to the idea much more easily. Objects. This is basically a bar graph. I just replaced the bars with a rocket. So you can come up with simple objects to add into the picture or substitute. And the next point is how do you know what to include in a picture, right? I've talked about keeping the ideas simple. How do I know it's a good balance between being too simple and being too overwhelming with details? Keep it simple and yet stimulating. Let's have a look at this example. This is the confidence competence curve, or you might know it as the Dunning-Kruger effect. The idea is that when you start to learn something, you have like the beginner's confidence. You think that you can do everything, right? You're at the top of the world. I've learned something new and I can conquer the world. But as you actually learn a little bit more and you get more competent at the thing you're doing, you feel your confidence dropping because you realize that there's so much more that you need to learn. But if you keep at it and persist at it, you eventually come to a stable point and a stable sense of confidence. So that's a mouthful. And this graph kind of puts all those words into a simple format, in a simple picture. But the only problem is that you are leaving the work of interpreting the message to the audience. Let's make this a little bit easier for the audience. One way you can do that is to add labels. Now, with these labels, your audience knows where to focus at and what points on the graph has meaning for them. So peak of Mount Stupid, Valley of Despair, Slope of Enlightenment, and your plateau of sustainability. These labels in itself are metaphors for mountains and climbing and the outdoors. So this makes it easy for your audience to understand the concept. But it's a little bit boring. In fact, it's getting a little bit overwhelming with so many words in the single picture. So the way I like to simplify or to make this a little bit more interesting is to add stick figures. And you don't even need to draw facial expressions. You just need to draw some tiny stick figures with different poses and actions so that the body posture would convey the sense of the emotion to your audience. And of course, if you can't draw figures, that's fine. You can always type emojis with your keyboards, copy and paste them into your graphs. It's really simple, right? So yeah, that's it. These are some of the ideas that I have. I want to take you a little bit beyond graphs, right? Because as you practice drawing graphs, you get bored. I started off by drawing graphs, and after a week, I began thinking that, how can I draw something more fun? Well, the whole idea is to think in metaphors. I have 3 examples here for you. It's outside the scope of this current session, but the idea is, what can I use around me, right? Like you probably at home right now, what's around you in your environment? Pick an item and then start to ask yourself questions like, oh, I have a cup of coffee here, right? What does this cup tell me? What can I come up with? What other ideas can be associated with a cup of water, with a cup of coffee, right? For example, I'm thinking, oh, a cup reminds me of a glass half full or half empty. It reminds me of other beverages I could have, so it doesn't have to be just water. And when I finish drinking the water, I can top it up with more water, right? So start to think about ideas like these from everyday objects that you see around you, and very soon you'll be able to come up with visuals or ideas like this, right? And before I get to the Q&A, I'd just like to leave you with this message. People won't remember what you say as much as what they see. So if you have ideas, if you have a service, if you have a message, show it to them and you'll get their attention. So let's pause for some questions.
That was amazing. And like, I was secretly hoping it would be, you know, super informative, which I knew it would be, but then also something else that I love about your work is how inspiring it is. I just feel like I leave encouraged. And so I also feel like that was part like motivational speech. So thanks for for the bonus there.
Thank you so much. I hope it's clear enough and easy enough for you guys to just start picking up the pen or pencil right after this call.
I love that. So a couple of questions. Feel free to drop your questions in the chat or in the Q&A. We'll we'll answer all the questions that you have, as many as you would like to ask about anything. What app do you use to draw on your phone?
Oh, on my phone, I use a Samsung Fold, so I have the privilege of having a huge screen and a stylus. But I draw all of my digital sketches on Google Keep. So there's you can use it with your finger as well, but open your Google Keep Notes and you click add drawing and you can just start sketching away. Yeah. So
I'm also a Samsung user and I have the pen.
The stylus. Yeah, that really helps. That's like the best. That's the only reason why I got this Samsung phone. So keep a notebook on you or some scraps of paper so that whenever ideas hit you, just scribble it down, either in words. Half my notes are like, I can't draw them sometimes, but I write down, draw a cup of water, for example. So it's like prompts for me to go back and then actually sketch it out properly. Yeah.
You touched on this a little bit, but I want to ask it just straightforward. How do you train yourself to think visually? You talked a little bit about metaphors, but I love to hear, like, is that a skill that you've always had, or is it something that you have worked at to teach yourself to start thinking in visuals?
I don't think I had like a intentional program to start thinking metaphorically or visually. It's both a product of reading a lot of books, and when you read nonfiction books, authors typically say that, oh, it's like so and so, it's like this or that, and then they try to link back to your life, right? So books, podcasts, conversations is and of course, as I started drawing, I started looking out for ideas, not visuals in particular, but I started to take down notes on what could be useful. In fact, I actually started writing before I learned to illustrate my ideas. So I was just capturing ideas anywhere I go, right? Sometimes I'm having coffee with my friend and my friend says something, I'm typing on my phone just so that I can share it with my newsletter. And over time, as I started to have that focus on drawing stuff, I started noticing more visual things as well. Yeah. So there's this thing called the reticular activating system in our brains. The more you want to do something, at the back of your mind, there's like a unconscious search for clues or hints or signs that will help you. So as long as you keep an open mind about, or an open eye to look out for useful visual metaphors in your life, you will start noticing that, hey, I'm getting more ideas just by going through my daily life.
Yeah. Juan kind of mentioned that in his note. My challenge is getting visually creative, given I tend to be cerebral and express better in writing. Did you find that as you kind of made that transition, did you like draw more, or did you feel like that desire to want to draw more is sort of what made it stand out to you? Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I am interested in the cerebral part because I'm trained in neuro-linguistic programming, and part of that is NLP is an understanding of models, right? How do people do great stuff, and how do we create the model and adapt it for ourselves? So part of my training is to understand my learning styles, and I'm auditory or internal dialogue kind of person. So what that means is that I think a lot internally. That may be a good or bad thing. But yeah, I think to your point, cerebral, you write a lot, use a lot of words. I think that's what we've been trained to do, right? Our entire formal education is based on words and numbers. You think back, before you actually went to school, you are a visual person. Before you really learn the words, or when you're in kindergarten, you tend to doodle a lot and scribble a lot, either with pencils or crayons on paper or on the walls. Yeah. So it's just that we've been trained so long in using words that we forget that we are actually originally biologically predisposed to visual. So it's about getting back in touch with your natural self. Yeah.
I love that. Dean asks, how do you transform a sketch into a polished illustration like the rocket?
Okay, so the rocket is actually, where is it? This was a trace of an emoji, right? So I took a picture of a rocket emoji, put it in Figma, and then use a pen tool and trace over it. Yeah. I think if we have time, if you're okay with it, let me show you a little bit about how I do things in Figma, right? So this is it is showing Figma.
Yes,
right?
yep. Also, yours is much more organized than mine.
This is for illustration purposes.
She's not lying. She's not lying. I've seen her Figma. She's not lying.
My Figma is just like large
It looks like a
groups of
stick
text.
figure. Yeah, it kind of looks like a stick figure. Yeah.
My Figma is large groups of text, and it just says like, it's this one here. I like that yours is organized.
It's not original. This
Inspired.
is my original. It's really, really messy and all over the place. That's why I had to create another one that is a lot more. But yeah, how do I create the rocket? I don't have that example right here, but this visual, I have not published it yet. If you have limited resources, would you concentrate on quality or would you sacrifice quality for volume? And I'm thinking about in terms of coffee, right? You can have a thick cup of coffee, very strong and fragrant, or you can have a diluted one. So I first had the idea on paper, and this is like a scanned image. That's why it looks so weird. And then what I did was to blow it up, use the pen tool to start tracing it. Oh, it's small. Okay, to start tracing the shapes. Yeah, and if you do that long enough, you get this. And if you once you have this, you can put it here and it can add the colors and things like that. So this is why I said you don't need to be an artist or talented to be able to create illustrations like that, because all these things are just traces of things, you know. I could probably draw these, but I took a reference image and then I traced over it as well and made it in my style. So yeah, you don't need to be able to draw to be able to use Figma. In fact, if without Figma, I probably wouldn't have gone down the artist's route. So thank you very much, technology and Figma.
Was there something about Figma specifically that you chose it over like another tool?
When I first learned to illustrate my ideas, my course instructor, Yanis Ozolins, check him out, he's brilliant. He taught us to do it on Figma. And I would also recommend people to use Figma because it's at the moment free. And you can invite 1 or 2 collaborators as well if you're working in a team. So yeah, you don't need to buy or spend on tools to get started. Yeah. Hope that answered the question.
Yeah, Figma stresses me out, which is why my Figma is a mess. Probably.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Can I throw one out?
Yeah.
So my guess is you've talked to a number of people who want to draw more, want to use visual depictions of their ideas. What are the mental blocks or limiting beliefs that you've heard about? Like, what do people tell you? And you're like, yeah, that's pretty common for people who really should be illustrating their ideas, drawing their ideas.
So besides the part on drawing, which we've already dispelled, you don't need to be able to draw. You can use software. Just draw simple stuff. Some of the more common ones that I hear is, I don't have ideas. I'm not creative, right? Well, creativity is simply a combination of seemingly unrelated things together
Mm.
to get new ideas. So and it doesn't take much to be creative or generate ideas. And I can sit down with you and talk about, okay, how can we plan 52 pieces of content for your marketing, for your business, based on your message, your product, or your service, just by having a few standard questions, right? And as for free play of ideas, well, the problem is that we've got too many options when we say, oh, I want to draw stuff, or I want to be creative, but what is it about? You have the desire, but no focus. But if you say, okay, I'm going to sit down and write or talk or draw about this very specific topic, then your creativity is funneled in the right direction. For example, if I want to talk about or social media, right? How do I develop my presence on social media? I can talk about all my experiences. I can illustrate my experiences as well. So you have to narrow down your focus into specific areas so that your creativity can actually work for you.
I like that. And another thing you said earlier that I'm like, yes, you said look around you. What are the objects in the room? And like, how can you think even beyond that? Like, there's a sleeping cat right over there on the couch. And I'm like, yeah, I bet I could turn that horrible sleeping cat into an illustration of some sort. I'm like, hey, there's my ambition right there, the sleeping cat, but that's super helpful. Question from Marie: do you consult with people when it comes to helping them turn or like find their best ideas?
I do that. And yeah, just send me an email. Happy to work with you. And I want to go back to the thing that I actually wanted to say, but forgot. Thanks for bringing up your cat, because that's really how I generate ideas as well. It's the method of association, right? Like, you've already started the chain. So what does your lazy sleeping cat remind you of, right? Your ambition. Like, I want to be able to snooze in the middle of the day as well, right? The next question goes, what else does my cat remind me of? Maybe well, I don't have a cat, so what else does your cat do?
Nothing.
The cat. Yeah, exactly. Yes, and this is the problem. Every morning I get up, and before I even get to make my coffee, they're like, feed me, feed me, feed me, feed me. We're not going to leave you alone until you feed me. And so I'm sure there's something there for us.
Yeah, that reminds me of what my coach tells me, right? My coach tells me that I'm too stressed. I want to everything too quickly. I got to be more patient and relaxed. And this is what she said, everything comes to me when I do nothing. And your cat's behavior literally reminds me of that. So I'm a cat, I do nothing, but I get fed all day. And I get a house, I get affection and all that. So I do nothing, but I get everything.
That's so good.
I love that.
And it's true. I do feed them. They will not leave me alone until I feed them. So it's working. It's working.
Will you repeat the name? You mentioned your course instructor who recommended Figma to you.
Yes, his name is Yanis. Let me actually show you his profile. He changed my life, right, by showing me how to draw even without any art or design background. And I've gone on to do this for here it is. Here's his Instagram. Let him know I sent you his way if you want to chat with him. He's very friendly. You can just chat with him. He creates illustrations in a similar style. I copied his style at first. And here's the thing about style, if you're concerned about whether it's gonna look like anyone else's work. When I started, I tried to copy his style exactly the way he does. But because I have my own experiences and thoughts, and I also look at other people's illustrations, over time and over practice, I'll develop my own distinct style. We might look similar, but if you put our pictures side by side, you can tell that it's from two different people, right? So you will eventually create your own unique style. Yeah. And that, by the way, also helps you stand out as your own personal brand. Yeah. Nice. So this is Janis. He's having fun, I think, I cannot remember where he relocated to, but he's having fun there.
Excellent.
And
I'll
he
make
has a
sure I
course-
include that
he has a
in
course-
the replay as well.
Yeah, cool.
Well, thank you so much for your time. We're a little bit over, so I want to respect everyone's time, but thank you so much for sharing all of that with us, just for the encouragement and yeah, I just feel like the support to, you know, and that belief of like, yeah, you can go out and do this. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll send out the replay as well. And absolutely follow Jun Han on all the places and sign up for his newsletter. It's all amazing.
Thank you so much, Michelle and Austin, for having me. And thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Happy to chat with you. If you have any questions, just send me an email or reach me via social media. Thank you for being here, and I hope to see your visual someday.
Thank you so much. Have a great one.
Cheers.